When I was a child, I filmed everything.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Hewlick.
And I mean everything.
I feel crazy, so I'm gonna open it out really quickly before I go on and post this online.
Filmmaking and storytelling and documenting my life was just what I did. I couldn't go a day without thinking about the next thing I was gonna make. It came as naturally to me as breathing. It was just what I did.
Ow. Oh my god.
It's Eliz, and this is my channel.
Flash forward. A lot has changed. I'm 22 now. I go by Eliz. I've been a sorority president, a DJ, a camp counselor, professional photographer, a collegiate athlete, a wannabe theater kid, a dancer. There's a time I got lit on fire too, but we don't need to talk about that. But ultimately, right now, I'm a film major in my last semester at college. Right now, we have about 40 days till graduation. That's not a lot of time. But there's the problem. Ye old senioritis is kicking in. I've been creating for the last 3.5 years. And I'm getting pretty wiped. But I'm about to go into the real world where creating is going to be my full-time job. I can't be burnt out yet. So the question then is, where do I go from here? How do I find my creative energy for my last final push in school? There's a timeline, probably pretty close to this one, where I just throw in the towel and coast the rest of the time on the work I've done before now. I don't want that! I want to be scraping the bottom of my barrel for that last bit of creativity and dedication to what I do while I'm still here. I want to give this last 2 months my all. I have a hypothesis. There's an answer to creative burnout. Play, for many, brings to mind ideas of children screeching on playgrounds, maybe playing soccer, playing chess, playing an instrument. However, play is something all of us take part in, no matter our age. As a word, play is incredibly difficult to find a definition for, since it is such a broad, encompassing concept. Many have tried to define it, and more than one expert has called the search futile. Scott G. Eberly, editor at American Journal of Play, states in his article, The Elements of Play. Previous research on play suggests that it can be boiled down to 5 primary characteristics. Those characteristics are: play is purposeless, voluntary, outside of the ordinary, fun, and focused by rules. Eberly goes on to explain how all of those characteristics could be disproven. However, I think this provides us a good jumping off point to start to begin to look at play. Play is this hugely powerful force that any of us can tap into at any point in time. It's a mindset, a state of being. Play allows us to take some of the pressure off of what we're doing and just experiment. Throw things at the wall and see what sticks. Play especially teaches us resilience, a sense of overcoming when things go differently than expected. It helps us find our flow state and put our efforts towards the process instead of the product. And play is just as important for adults as it is for kids. Obviously, as adults, we have different responsibilities, and we have work, and we can never really make our work truly play. However, we also can engage in a sort of serious play where we take that playful mindset and apply it to our work. We can lower the stakes and just play around. As creatives, being able to tap into play is imperative. It's what keeps us from getting burnt out on a monthly basis. It's hard sometimes as an artist to continue to love your craft when it is your work and your career and your income. And using this sense of play allows that spark to kind of keep burning. And even people whose career isn't in a creative field benefit from the sense of play. Whether art's a career path for you or a hobby, engaging that creative part of your brain is incredibly useful in developing your skills, craft, and your general enjoyment of the process. Engaging the creative part of your brain only benefits you as a person. It is not a waste of time, it is not childish, it is not selfish, it is life-giving. Creativity, just like play, is an innate part of who we are as humans. These skills already exist inside us all from birth. The only work we have to do in order to access them is working on removing the barriers and obstacles that we've learned throughout our lives that keep us from playing and creating like we once did as children. While there are many barriers to playing and engaging in that mindset, there's a few that I really find myself running into the most often. Number 1, being distracted / not in the moment. Parentheses, it's the damn phones. Playful creativity relies upon seizing the opportune moment in front of you. It relies on being aware enough of what's happening around you to notice an opportunity to play and take it. And it's hard to do that when you're 2 hours deep in a scroll hole on your phone and you're not engaging with the present moment. Also, the best play happens when you're bored. Think about time you spent as a child before we were inundated with technology. Lazy summer days are what allowed me to make videos and record my life like I did. It's how videos like these came to be. I was bored, I decided what I wanted to make, and I did it. For fun, for entertainment, for the love of doing it. Something I found that helps me when I have something creative I want to lock in on is I put my phone in a little box in this little drawer for like an hour or two, and it really just helps me eliminate my distractions and focus on the task at hand. And I find myself to be more creative, more in the moment, and playing more essentially when I am able to do that. It's also important to do this, I think, during unstructured time too, when you don't have a goal in mind, to just let yourself be and see what your brain comes up with when you force yourself to be bored. Obstacle number 2, not enough time. If we want to play and create, we have to make time for it. Now, sometimes this is scheduling it off in your calendar, knowing an activity you want to do that's going to be rejuvenating, playful, and scheduling it. Sometimes it's just leaving some open time in your calendar and not scheduling out every minute of your day. That's, again, being bored is so important because it allows you to have the space and time to come up with creative ideas that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. And obstacle number 3, feeling silly or uncomfortable. Now, this is bound to happen when you start looking at life with a more playful mindset. The hard thing with this, though, is that there really is no life hack, no solution, no good tip. You kind of just have to work your way through it, but it's like a muscle. The more you use this muscle of being a little bit uncomfortable or feeling silly, the stronger it gets. This is part of the fun, also. Being silly is fun. Stop taking yourself so seriously and just let your inner child be free. Now, as for how to make opportunities to play in your own life or turning your work into play, I like to turn to a more structured approach. This is where I'm going to go back to Scott Eberle's Elements of Play article. In this article, he lists that there are 6 elements of play. These are anticipation, surprise, pleasure, understanding, strength, and poise. These are almost like stages that you go through when you play. They don't always happen linearly in order, but most of the time, play allows for these 6 things to occur. I like to kind of think of them as the 6 things that play can give to you. Let's look at each of these individually and see how we can almost reverse engineer a playful experience for ourselves. So number 1, we have anticipation. Play starts by looking forward to playing. This can sometimes be found in knowing the play you're going to engage in, but also sometimes it's found in the not knowing, just the knowing that you're going to play, but still having the kind of what-if anticipation. This state of readiness almost provides a reward in itself. For the sake of this video, and looking at play and creativity, I'm going to use the example of making a collage piece. Anticipation in this endeavor might be daydreaming about what you're going to collage, the feeling of having your materials ready and anticipating what's to come, looking through the magazines, picking up your supplies from the store maybe, or just deciding that that's what you're going to do and that you're excited about it. Now, the one thing with anticipation that I want to talk about is how it can easily spiral too far in the opposite direction and kind of turn into obsession if you have too much of it. I think this is where a lot of us kind of start to touch that sense of burnout. That's, I think, where some of it comes from, is that obsession with our work. I know sometimes for me, before I start something, or even as I'm kind of in the process of starting something, before I've gotten the ball rolling, the sitting around and thinking about it is kind of where the dread starts to come from. This is where we start to lose that sense of fun a little bit. When we obsess over the thing we're creating, whether in a way where we're so excited about it and it's going to be the best thing ever, or if it might be in an anxious way, in the other way, and we're thinking about, all the things we're going to have to do to accomplish it, to make it look like what it looks like in our brain. We might start feeling that sense of overwhelm, of incompetency, like you don't know how to do it, you don't know where to start. This is where a lot of that procrastination comes from, that feeling of being stuck in that waiting stage almost to start. One way I found to kind of combat this is if you have a creative project you're working on, putting aside time that you're going to devote to just working on it. And while you're in that time, that's when you think about the project. That's when you think about what you're working on, different elements of it, how you can make it better, things you like about it, etc. When you're not in that creating time, try and limit those thoughts about the thing you're creating. Sometimes it's good and you have those nice, like you're in the shower and you have a good idea, you're driving, you have a good idea. That's great. But when it becomes an obsessive thing, that's when we gotta tone it down a little, because that's where I think some of this burnout starts. So anticipation, good. at a healthy amount. Element number 2, surprise. This can be found in new experiences. There's a certain open-ended nature of play that allows for new surprises, kind of things to break through the mundane of life and surprise you. Also with play, there's a certain element of lack of control. You can't control every single aspect in play. And if you are trying to control every aspect, you get to a point where you're not really playing anymore. Part of what makes play fun is not knowing what to expect. This can obviously go too far and become a source of anxiety, but when you correctly engage with play, this shouldn't be a concern, and ultimately it's a good thing that you don't know what to expect. There's a certain sense of discovery and thrill that we find when we play. For example, in this collage, I might have a general idea of what I want to make, but I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. I might find something new that I didn't think that I was going to be involved in it. I might have an idea and I want to take it in a completely different direction. That surprise is fun, and kind of seeing it come together, and maybe it looks pretty close to what you would imagine, and maybe it looks pretty different, but that surprise is part of the fun, I think. Sometimes loosening that grip of control, turning off your brain, and just creating can lead to some of the most awesome, inspiring, and interesting, ultimately, pieces and ideas. Element number 3, pleasure. When we say play is fun, this is what we mean. It's the sense of joy, of wonder, of enjoying what you're doing, ultimately. Play at its core should be enjoyable, at least for some duration of it. We don't always experience pleasure the entire time we're playing, and that's okay, but there should be some sort of pleasure that you're deriving from the activity to be considered play. When we create, especially when we do it for our job, sometimes we get stuck in the parts that are less pleasurable, maybe the planning, logistical details, or just like business work. Now, just because part of the work isn't pleasurable at face value doesn't mean it's not still important and that we have to stall our play. We can choose to make those parts more fun and playful, or we can accept that they're part of the journey and we will soon have that sense of pleasure and joy again. For example, in this collage, I feel like a lot of the pleasure is in the act of actually creating, the cutting things out, gluing them down, finding images that spark joy, and then using them to create something even bigger that sparks even more joy. All of the little things that you do when you create, and really again, being present, experiencing those feelings that come with that. All the little things that make creating whatever you're creating fun for you. Element number 4, understanding. When we play, we gain a greater understanding of how things work. We're able to deeper engage and be present in what we're doing, which allows for insights and understandings that we might not get when we are busy stressing and following the step-by-step routine. We sometimes also find a deeper sense of empathy and understanding for others. We might, for a minute, feel someone else's sorrow, put ourselves in their shoes, or share in their joy. This empathy and experiencing another person's life can lead to a greater sense of understanding for others and for the world as a whole. For example, in this collage, if I'm present while I'm putting it together, I might come to see a pattern in the images I like, or I learn something about my own personal design style, or maybe because I'm allowing curiosity in the door and not necessarily in a rush trying to be productive, I might even just take some time to flip through the magazine and read something and learn about something I didn't know before. When we open ourselves up to being curious and exploring and playing, we learn and we understand new things, and that's pretty awesome. Element number 5, strength. Anytime we engage our creative skills at all, we strengthen them, whether it feels like it or not. This is especially true, though, during the use of playful creativity. When we engage in play, we practice a learned resiliency. This allows us to problem solve without feeling the weight and doom that we sometimes do when we encounter problems in a non-playful setting. The same is true when we create in a playful mindset. Perceived obstacles become part of the path to whatever we're creating. The challenge is no longer a daunting task in front of us, or maybe our worst nightmare, but it's almost an exciting thing that we get to attempt. We're challenging ourselves in new ways, and that's fun. And when we do this, we find a sense of strength in ourselves. Ultimately, play reframes how we see struggles and setbacks. We also gain a sense of mastery and control the more we play. For example, in collaging, a very literal form of strength would be the fine motor skills we develop by practicing our cutting and gluing. That's literally strengthening your fine motor skills. However, we also practice decision-making skills. We practice design, and ultimately, we practice creativity as a whole. This betters us as creatives, yes, but also it betters us as human beings. And finally, the last element of play, poise. If you're lucky, your play will result in a sense of poise. You would find this right at the end of your time playing. This is a feeling of balance, of being in harmony, and being ready to take on anything. Maybe we did a little bit of catharsis through our art. We worked through some feelings, some emotions, and we came out with a stronger sense of balance and poise. We have fed our minds, and we feel a sense of accomplishment. Eberle says, players are poised for the unexpected and ready to respond gracefully and creatively to what is in store. In this collage example, this would be the feeling you get when you finished. It might not be your favorite thing you've ever made, but if you've approached it playfully enough, you'll probably feel some sense of satisfaction, of balance, and of composure. You're ready to take on whatever else the day has to offer with a sense of grace and clarity. And those are the 6 elements of play. Eberle described this as a series of fortunate events driven by emotional experiences. Ultimately, to get in this mindset, we have to be present and we have to feel what's happening. Engaging in this play, in turn, only makes us better artists and creatives. Now, if you're still struggling to figure out how to make your creative process more fun or engaging through play, or if there's aspects of your work that you can't imagine being play, sometimes it helps to reimagine it as a game of sorts. When all else fails, games are a great way to turn work into play. French scholar and writer Roger Caillois, in his book Man, Play, and Games, noted that there are 4 ways to categorize games. These are competition, chance, mimicry, and vertigo. Let's look at these and see how we can make our work into play. First, we have competition. This is a very traditional sense of a game. Think of basketball players scrimmaging, a game of chess, or any other competitive endeavor. You can compete against the clock, find someone to engage in a competitive game with you, or compete with yourself in your past work. An example of this, if your career is in a creative field, it might help to race against the clock. You know, how quickly, if you have to go through your email inbox, and that sounds like the most dreadful, horrible thing in the world, how quickly can you get through all the emails you need to get through? You might say, if I work for just 2 hours on this piece, how much can I get done? Or maybe you have an accountability partner who's also working on a creative project with you, and you compete to see how long you can go without picking up your phone and looking at it. Now, obviously, you might want to account for potential errors that come up as a result of working really fast or competing or turning your work into a game. However, this can be a way to still spice things up and make it more fun and engaging for yourself. Number 2, chance. These are games of chance, so dice games, card games, games you don't really have control over the outcome, where your chance of winning or losing is ultimately at the hands of fate. I like to incorporate chance by assigning random numbers to tasks, maybe different projects or things that I don't want to do, and I'll randomly pick a number using a random number generator, and that'll be the thing I work on first. If you maybe want to take this in the way of a creative prompt, you could do something like open up Pinterest, and the first image that you see is what you're going to use to inspire your creation or work into it in some way. There's a lot of fun ways that you can kind of make creative prompts for yourself using chance. Number 3, mimicry. For this, think children playing house, and general make-believe imaginary play. For adults, this might look more like some form of romanticizing your work. How can I romanticize my creative work and imagine that perhaps I'm someone else doing it? I used to do this a lot in high school when I would get tired at show choir rehearsals. I would say, what if I am not rehearsing to perform at a small Midwest show choir competition, but instead maybe I am Beyonce's backup dancer and I am rehearsing for the Super Bowl or a big Coachella performance. And ultimately that was really effective in helping me to flip a switch in my brain, A, have more fun with what I was doing, but also at the same time kind of really dig my head in and commit to my work. And ultimately, I found myself rehearsing better when I had that mindset. This is definitely a bit silly and requires some imagination, but ultimately it's the energy you need to push through sometimes. You might imagine that you're painting not for a school project, but you're a famous artist and you have a deadline, and this painting is going to be hung in the Louvre, so it better be good. This can provide a different perspective to view your work through, and when done in this manner, it can both enliven a sense of play in your brain and encourage you to work harder and create better products. Finally, we have vertigo. Now, this one is the hardest to explain and also the hardest to make work for creative endeavors, but stick with me, we're gonna see what we can do. Vertigo is a type of fun you find in a carnival ride. This is children spinning around in circles until they fall down on the ground. You find this in many types of dance, in skiing, in race car driving, maybe in being in a large crowd at a concert and kind of stomping and being shoved around and screaming along to your favorite song. Now, disclaimer, this is not an inherently fun concept to everyone. I get motion sick sometimes. I don't always love tipsy-turvy roller coasters. For some people, though, this feeling of vertigo, of kind of being off your axis, again, there's a certain sense of being somewhat out of control. There's this sense of fun and pure excitement and thrill that you find in that, some of that surprise. It is hard to think of this in terms of creating, but ultimately I think it's about getting back into your body. I feel like sometimes when we create, we get really in our heads, and that's what makes our work good and engaging, but also sometimes we lose the sense of being present in our bodies, and sometimes that can be a good brain break for us, kind of reinvigorating some exciting physical sensations for ourselves. You could take this literally and maybe just put a big canvas on the ground and take a paint bucket and swing it around in circles. But maybe it's just taking a brain break from your work and you go play on a playground. You do a little bit of physical movement, have a little dance party, do something silly like balance on one leg or bounce up and down. Anything to get yourself back in your body, kind of re-stimulate your brain and get it going. There are many ways to play and many parts to this very wide encompassing concept. But ultimately what matters is that you find ways to play that you like, that are impactful to you, and then you engage in them regularly. Play stimulates your brain and in turn stimulates your creativity in ways that you cannot even begin to imagine. It's important to make your work exciting and engaging for yourself, but also it's important to play outside of creating. This will only fuel your art as well as your overall well-being. Preventing burnout also requires just taking a break from your work and experiencing other new and different things. And play is a great way of thinking about this. When you're able to stop taking things so seriously and enjoy the work in front of you, it becomes more engaging, exciting, and life-giving than any attempt to be the best to ever do it or trying to be so productive. And ultimately, isn't that what we all want? For our work to inspire us to create more, for a sense of delight and purpose in what we do, and ultimately to enjoy it. When you use playful creativity, this is what you get.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.